Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku and Nejire were childhood friend, Deku x Nejire, part 2. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, HenryHPS, link is in the description, also subscribe to our channel, and like this video, so let's begin the video. And the next day everything was back to normal on parts, although Izuku had been healed with Recovery Girl's quirk, he did not have enough stamina to completely recover, therefore his body was still damaged, and his arm was still a bit broken, but not that much, and Katsuki, after being defeated in the battle exercise, hadn't said a word to anyone or anything, and no one knew why he was like this. Except Izuku. The explosive teen had never lost, especially to a person that he deemed useless. The idea that he was surpassed had hit him hard, but there was something else bothering everyone. In front of the UA gates was an entire team of reporters and investigators trying to get as much information about All Might as possible. He still is the No.1 hero after all, his presence is enough to get the attention of thousands of people, even if he isn't working, and the press wasn't letting anyone breathe either. Every time a student tried to get inside the campus they would surround them and make dozens of questions about All Might's teaching skills. Ichako, Izuku, Tenya. Katsuki, although he didn't even react to the people around him, no one was allowed to pass without answering at least one question from the reporters. But in due time, UA officials and Asawa himself came to face the press and put an end to their endless questions, closing the main gates and stopping anyone else from entering the campus. Now in the Wana classroom, Asawa greeted his class while pulling some papers from below his podium, preparing to start the day. "Okay everyone," he started. "Good work on yesterday's battle training. I've looked over your grades and evaluations, and I have some nits to pick," he said, directing his look to the silent teenager. "Katsuki, grow up already. You have a lot of potential, don't waste it on such irrational matters," the erasure hero advised, but the blonde didn't react. And Izuku changed his focus to the green hero, who filched in response. "Learn to keep your guard up, if you were smart you could have stopped Katsuki before he unleashed that blast. One day this may cause you to get seriously injured." "Yes sir," Izuku exclaimed, flashing a determined look. "Now that this is out of the way, I know it is very sudden, but..." All the students shivered. Is he going to give us another brutal test? Seemed to be a thought most of the class shared. "The day you're going to choose a class president," he announced, receiving surprised looks from the students. Such a normal shoe-like thing. They thought while most of the class raised their hand. Everyone wanted the job. In a normal school, being the class president would only give you a couple of mundane tasks, but in a hero course, that meant becoming the leader, a position desired for any top hero in the making. While the class yelled their why and what they would do with the new post, Teeny raised his voice and said it coldly. "Quiet down everyone," he said, making everyone lower their voices. "Leading the many brings great responsibilities, therefore the one and only leader must be chosen by election," he declared while raising his hand, showing that he also wanted to become the new leader. "Tenya, we've only met each other. We didn't have the time to build any trust," exclaimed Sayo characteristics. "Not only that, but everyone will vote for themselves," Nejire said, and he had a point. "That is precisely why anyone who gets multiple points will be the best suited for the position," Tenya explained as he turned his head towards the teacher who was entering his sleep bag. "Would you allow this, Teacher Asawa?" "I don't care how you do it. Just do it quickly," he answered coldly. And with that, the class decided to use Tenya's idea and choose the president by election. After a couple of minutes of voting, the victors were decided. Izuku stood at first place with 3 votes, and Yayoi Momo at second with 2, and the rest of the class with 1, which most likely were their own points. "How did I get 3? Izuku asked, although no one answered, the only thing that was listenable was a soft whistling from the back of the room. "0 points, as I thought of the cold and harsh reality of this sacred position," Tenya said while kneeling on the floor. "What's your idea, dude? You're the one who suggested the election?" asked Rikido, not sure of his classmate's decision. "There's no need to worry, I'm sure that Izuku is the right one for the job, and Momo is very smart, I'm sure we can count on them," Denki said, receiving a nod from the rest of the class. "So it's decided Izuku as class president and Momo as his vice president," confirmed Asawa as he left his bag. "Now that this is decided everyone is free for lunch once the bell rings, get back here as quick as possible," he finished, releasing the class for their deserved meal. Inside of the dining hall, students from all courses devoured the food that was served for them, and in one of the tables, Ichako and Tenya waited for their friend to arrive. Izuku still wasn't fully healed, so he had to visit Recovery Girl's office one last time, so all of his injuries could cease to exist. With his plate in hands, Izuku approached his friends and sat on the chair across from them. "Are you okay now?" Ichako asked between bites. Aside from the tiredness, I'm completely fine. Thanks for asking. So how does it feel to be the new class president, Deku? She asked again while taking a sip from her juice. It's alright, I guess I didn't receive any tasks yet, Izuku said before stuffing his mouth with rice. I'm just a little worried if whether or not I can be class president. Yes, you can. Both Ichako and Tenya said in unison, surprising the introvert. Your ability to make quick decisions while under pressure makes you perfect for the job, that's why I voted for you. Tenya explained as he finished his plate of curry. So Tenya voted for me. Izuku though happy with friend act, but didn't you want to be president too? Ichako asked, practically finishing Izuku's thought. My ambition has nothing to do with if I'm suited for the job or not, I humbly made the choice I deemed correct. This last phrase of his seemed to intrigue Ichako, because right after he finished, she immediately said. You sound like one of the rich kids with such a formal vocabulary. At the same time she said the word rich, Tenya shivered. I don't like people to know, so I try to hide it, but indeed, I am from a very renowned hero family, and I am the second son. Do you know the turbo hero, Ingenium? He asked, receiving an amazed look from Izuku. I know him. He employs 65 sidekicks at his office in Tokyo. So you're the green-haired started, but was interrupted, as the blue-haired coughed. You're very well informed, but yes, he is my brother. Tenya exclaimed proudly. Such a quick change. He leads people with an unwavering adherence to rules and regulations. It's my admiration for my brother that inspired me to become a hero. He said with pride in his voice, once again. Though I'm not yet ready to lead, it was right that the role should go to you, Izuku. He finished with a warm smile on his face. Tenya is just like me while I have Almighty has Ingenium. Izuku though, amazed by how similar he was to his friend. Just like I. As he was about to start discussing with his own mind, a loud alarm rang through the entire building, putting everyone in a terrified state. Security level 3 has been broken. All students evacuate in an orderly fashion. The room speaker said, making all students rush to the emergency exit. Everyone was afraid, but the 3 students from class 1 had no idea of what was happening. Thinking quickly, Tenya turned around and asked a nearby student. What security level 3? He asked, waving his hands in his robotic style. It means someone has invaded the school. This hasn't happened in 3 years. Now hurry up and get out of there. The student said while making his way to the exit. Following his advice, the trio got up from their chairs and entered the mass of teens who were running for their lives, but there were too many people for so little space. As they entered the crowd, they began being tossed and smashed all over the place, and for Izuku it was even worse. Since he was tired from being healed by Recovery Girl's quirk, he could barely stand his ground and tried to get to a safer place. As he was dragged around, the introvert hit the window and managed to take a look outside. UA. The main gates had been destroyed by something, and the press corps were swarming inside as Asawa and Present Mix stopped their invasion. Understanding the situation, Izuku tried to scream. Everyone, it's okay, it's just the press. He said, but his voice wasn't as loud as he needed it to be. I'm still too tired and no one is paying attention. It has to be someone else. Izuku concluded. Looking around, as he tried to formulate a plan, he noticed that Ichako and Tenya were really close to each other. With a little bit of thinking, the dots in his mind connected. Tenya. He called and was surprised to see that his friend had heard him even with his low voice. It's just the press. We're in no threat. You have to get their attention. But how? He asked as Izuku looked toward the girl by the blue-haired side. Ichako, make him float. Alright. With a little bit of difficulty, Ichako managed to touch Tenya and turn him weightless. As the team began floating, Izuku continued. Now use your quirk to get to the emergency exit. You'll be able to draw more attention there. Leave it to me. He nodded while pulling his pants to expose his engines. Activating his quirk, Tenya shot himself forward, but since he wasn't being affected by gravity, he went all the way spinning around his head. After a moment, he hit the wall and was now in front of the mass of desperate teens. Say something. Make it short and concise, he thought while taking a deep breath. Everyone, everything is fine. He shouted, making all students stop. It's just the press, there is nothing to panic about. We're okay. As the students looked through the window and saw the mass of reporters being repressed, the crowd calmed down. With everything back to normal, Ichako disabled her quirk, making Tenya fall safely on the ground, and Izuku got away from the window breathing as much as he could. God, this was terrifying. It took a while, but the cops arrived and the reporters were driven away. Everything had come back to normal and no one was harmed. Back in the first year's classroom, Izuku and Momo stood in front of the class, prepared to begin passing the instructions. So, we'd like to start choosing the new members of student council, but before that. I would like to give my position to Tenyuita. Izuku said, catching everyone off guard. But why? You won the election. Exclaimed Hanta, unsure of his classmate's decision. Well, it's for two main reasons, Izuku started. The first being that I'm not good at public speaking in general, as you can tell, and the second one is that I don't feel like I'm ready for this position. I wasn't able to calm anyone down, but Tenya led everyone and controlled the situation perfectly. He said, putting himself down. But you were the one who told me what to do. Tenya exclaimed, trying to lift his friend's spirits. Even so, I'm not as strict as you when it comes to rules, and if you weren't there to draw everyone's attention, something really bad could have happened. So I think you're the better suitor for the job. The green-haired explained, once again, putting himself down. Tenya took a moment to think, trying to find the best course of action. After deciding, he got up from his chair and moved closer to his friend. I'll accept your offer, but with one condition. You're still the superior candidate in my eyes. So until you feel comfortable with your abilities to lead, I'll hold the title for you, but once that day comes, this honor will be passed back to you. He demanded while extending his hand towards the introvert, who simply nodded. If that's how you want it, I agree. Until then, let's cheer for the new class president. Izuku yelled, making the entire class cheer with him, with only one exception. Itsuki remained silent. Even with all of his classmates celebrating around him, he just stayed still in his chair, with no reaction. Izuku knew why he was like this, and he knew that he had to do something. As the day of studies reached its close, all students organized their materials and left the classroom, heading back to their respective homes, the rivals included. While the sun set on the horizon, Kitsuki slowly walked to the gates with his dreadful silence around him. As he got near the exit, a tired voice called him. Pakin. Izuku called, making Kitsuki stop moving. I wanted to talk to you about the battle training. Slowly, the explosive teen turned around to face his childhood friend and saw the expression of remorse that he so much hated to see, especially when it was directed to him. I really can't tell you much, but this power I have, Izuku began. I got it from someone else. Boom, he dropped the bomb on him, and it didn't seem to have any effect since the blonde didn't even react. This power was bestowed to me, I can't tell you who did it, but I felt like you deserved to know, he continued, looking to the floor and not noticing that the blonde began to shake. It isn't mine, but I'll work my hardest, so one day I can look at someone, say that it is my own. He paused, trying to gather enough courage to spit the next words. And surpass you with it. He finished, lifting his face and looking at his now sworn rival. But for his surprise, he had reacted, but not in a friendly way. Itsuki was shaking, his fist was clenched and popping small explosions from it. He was gritting his teeth and looking at the green hairs with pure anger in his eyes. What are you saying? Got it from someone else? Not only did I lose to you, but you also searched for me, just to spit this crap at me. The blonde roared. He was really mad at the introvert's actions. Listen to me, you fucking nerd, if this power is yours or not from now on, I'll get even stronger to one day defeat you all, you hear me? He yelled, making Izuku yelp in response. Enjoy your victory while you can, because it will never happen again. And with that, Kitsuki turned around and continued his walk back home. I think I brought him back to his old self. Izuku, though, still scared with his rival reaction. Letting a tired sigh escape, Izuku turned back to the campus and, with one last look towards his childhood friend, made his way to finish the errands he had left. In front of the disintegrated passage stood Principal Nezu, Recovery Girl, Midnight, 13, and Present Mick, analyzing the remains of what once was one of the school's impenetrable gateways. Do you think one of the reporters did it? Asked Midnight, not sure of how it happened. No reporter would be able to do such a thing, this was the action of some evildoer. Concludes Nezu, now holding his hands behind his back. We better get someone to investigate this. It wasn't an accident, he paused. This was a warning. The first week flew past our eyes. Before we could notice, we were having more difficult classes and tasks to fulfill, and, of course, that also applied to hero training. We went from indoor battles to bomb disarming, outnumbered fight, and so much more, all of that in 1 week, but today, things would get a bit more complicated for multiple different reasons. As Asawa climbed his podium, he announced. For today's hero basic training this time, All Might, myself, another teacher, and some special guests will be supervising your actions. He said, receiving excited looks from the students. What are we going to do exactly? Hanta asked, unsure of what to expect. Preparing you for disaster relief, from fires to flood, it's rescue training. Asawa announced, as he showed the confirmation from the principal, just like All Might did last week. It sounds like another rough day for us. Denki said, unsure if he should feel happy or scared of the idea. Come on bro, this is what being a hero's about. I'm really pumped. Exclaimed Ijiro, who could barely contain his excitement inside himself. I'm not done, the erasure hero interrupted while pressing a button from the wall controller, revealing the students' costumes. It is up to each of you whether you wear your costumes or not, as most of them are ill-suited for this activity. But the training site is a bit far from the campus, so we'll be going by bus. That is all. Get ready and meet me at the gates. He ordered, leaving the students by themselves, who immediately rushed towards the wall to grab their equipment. This training will help me become the great hero I know I can be. I'll do my best. Izuku thought as he grabbed his wallet as well. And with that, all students left the classroom to change and start another important step of their lives. Now inside the bus and wearing their costumes, all students began chatting about themselves as no one had been properly introduced. Until one of them dropped this bomb. I'm Tsayu Asui, but you can just call me Tsayu, and I generally say what's inside my mind. Izuku said while turning to the teen beside her. Your quirk resembles All Might's. As she finished her sentence, Izuku shivered. God, I'm in this school for 1 week and I'm already being discovered. He thought, scared of what the frog girl knew about him. Do you think so? Izuku said, unable to stop stuttering. Now that you say it, your quirks do look alike. Agreed Ejiro, making Izuku get even more afraid. You both get a lot stronger and faster. Well, if you put it that, then all strength enhancing quirk would be similar to what the green-haired said, trying to make them stop comparing him with a 0.1 hero. But it doesn't make it less awesome. The red-haired continued. My quirk only allows me to harden my body. I can be a good fighter, but it looks very boring. I think it is a really cool quirk. It is more than enough if you want to become a pro. Izuku praised him, surprised by how he overlooked his power. But don't forget that heroes also have to worry about their popular appeal. My naval laser is both strong and cool, perfect for a pro. Yuga praised himself, trying to draw some attention. If you don't blow your stomach up, that is. Misa said, snatching the blonde's time in the spotlight. He wasn't happy about it. If we're going to talk about strong and cool, then it would be Katsuki and Shoto. Rikito concluded, accidentally drawing the explosive teen's attention. Katsuki is too rude, he'd never be popular. Tsayu exclaimed, making Katsuki grit his teeth. What did you say, frog face? He shouted, almost charging at the girl. What did I say? She mocked again. We barely started socializing, and you already got mad at one of us. It just shows how shitty your personality really is. Denki said with a cocky smile, insulting the walking bomb. Oh yeah, dunce face, how about I pound you to see if you can keep up with that shitty grin? The explosive teen challenged, making small explosions from his hands. Is being bullied. I guess that UA for you, Izuku thought, surprised with what was happening in front of him. Would all of you shut up? We have arrived. Asawa said, getting the students' attention. As Class 1A left the vehicle and entered the building, they got a good look at where they were going to spend their next 3 hours, and it could not be better. The Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short, was a paradise for anyone who wanted to improve their rescue abilities. After all, it was built to fit any situation. Floods, landslides, conflagrations, whatever you need to practice, USJ has it. Now looking to the establishment's main gate, 4 different figures could be seen from afar, one of them being. Oh my god. It's the space hero, 13. Izuku shouted as he rushed towards the said hero with a Chaco by his side. I can't believe we're going to have class with 13, the gentleman who does his best work in rescue scenarios. I love him. Achako exclaimed while jumping out of pure joy. 13, where's All Might? He should be here with us. Asawa said as he approached the space hero. He said he had reached his limits in his morning commute, he answered while extending 3 fingers from one of his hands. Right now he is resting in the break room. 3. Izuku thought as he noticed the hero's communication method. Does that mean that he has already passed his 3-hour limit? He is the peak of irrationality. Good thing we brought them with us. Asawa said as the figures that till this moment remained silent smirked. Everyone, I'd like you to meet the top 3 students of UA, or, as others call them, the Big 3. As he finished, all students from Class 1A looked at the mentioned teenagers who stood proudly in front of the gate. Hello everyone. My name is Mirio Tagada, but you may call me Lemillion. It is a pleasure to meet you all. He said while waving his arms frantically. He was wearing a plated white shirt with the number 1.000.000 written across it, blue pants with white stripes by the sides, red boots, gloves, and a floor-length cape, along with a white helmet with a red visor. I'm Tamaki Amajiki, but my hero name is Suneater. He said while cowardly hiding behind Mirio. He was wearing a white vest with a big white hood that could easily cover his entire face, a purple vest and mask, and skin-tight long-sleeved shirt and pants. And I'm Nejire Hato, but my hero name is Nejire-chan. Said a girl with a skin-tight bodysuit with some blue and green details, a pair of spiral green gauntlets, thick orange gloves, and 2 spiral horns. But if you excuse me, here it comes. Why are you wearing a mask, Mizo? Is it the latest fashion? She asked, uncontrollably jumping around the multi-armed teen. Well, a long time ago. Hey Mina, can you break your horns? If so, will they grow back? The brunette asked as she played with one of the pink girl's horns, but before she could answer, the brunette had already jumped to another victim. Hey Tsayu, are you a tree frog? You aren't a toad, Nejire asked while messing with the frog girl's hair, but before she could finish her sentence, a very strong hand touched her shoulder. That's enough, Nejire. We don't want to scare the freshmen in our first encounter. Mirio interrupted, pulling the curious girl away from the students by her arm. But I still have so many questions. She yelled while trying to free herself from the man's grasp. She's a total airhead. Thought most of the 1A students, completely surprised by how one of the top students behaved, but this wasn't important because while Izuku analyzed the heroine, something grabbed his attention. Her hair, it was of the same of his memories, a soft sky blue that reached all the way down to the waist. He was surprised. She looked so familiar. He thought, still amazed by the similarities she had with the girl in his memories. And on the other side, Nejire stared at the green hero while being pulled back to the group of third years. I still wanted to talk with him, she thought, sad that she wasn't able to talk with the boy that had been inside her mind all week. But before they could continue wondering about it, Asawa called. Okay, now that everyone knows each other, it's time to begin, the erasure hero said before being interrupted by a weird sound coming from the fountain at the center of the establishment. As he turned around to see what was making this noise, he spotted a weird black mist that was rapidly growing bigger, and though the black mist ahead with red sunken eyes, blue hair, and with its face completely covered by a hand crawled out of it. In an instant, the mist became a giant portal which several people were coming out of. They were carrying knives, guns, baseball bats, all kinds of weapons that you could think of. Entering an alarming state, Asawa quickly pulled his goggles to his face and activated his scarf. Everyone, huddle up and don't move. He ordered, but only received confused looks from the first-year students, while the space hero and the big three shivered. What are those? Are they battle robots just like in the entrance exam? Ijiro questioned, trying to identify what was coming out of the dark mist. Nobody moved. Those are villains. Asawa shouted, making all the students terrified. How can villains be here? Izuku asked himself, scared with the idea that real villains had invaded school territory. 13, protect the students. I'll hold them back. Eraser had ordered while jumping into the mass of criminals. All Might isn't here, the man covered in hand said coldly, while looking at the crowd in the establishment gates. I wonder if some dead kids will bring him here, the villain said, making shivers run through all the students' spines. 13, an Eraser had according to the staff schedule that I received the other day, All Might is supposed to be here, the Black Mist said. If he is here or not, it doesn't matter to you. Asawa yelled while launching a string of his scarf at the head of the mist creator, but it simply passed through him. This guy will be harder to take down. The erasure hero thought, evaluating his situation. As the hero landed, a bunch of smaller villains started surrounding him, but, with quick movements and precise attacks, any Avildor that got too close was taken down in an instant, some because they depended on their quirks too much, or simply because they weren't on the erasure hero combat level. I hate pro heroes. Ordinary villains stand no chance against them. The villain covered his hands while scratching his chin. Back in the USJ gates, the class watched in amazement as their teacher fought evenly with dozens of villains, not giving them time to think. Wow, he can hold his own even when outnumbered. Izuku said, surprised by how strong Asawa really was. This isn't the time to make an analysis. We need to evacuate. Exclaimed 13 while leading the students to the exit. But before anyone could pass through the door, the Black Mist villain appeared and blocked their path. Greetings, we are the League of Villains, he announced while spreading the mist through the entire door. Forgive our audacity, but today we've come to the UA High School. To kill the symbol of peace, All Might. In the same moment he finished his sentence, Izuku froze. Will All Might have they found a way to do so? The green-haired wondered. We were informed that he would be here today, but maybe his schedule was revised. Well, no matter. My job remains the same, the mist wondered, now moving his haze towards the students, but before he could capture them, a blue shockwave hit him, stopping him from reaching any further. As the first years turned around, they saw the big three in their battle stances, but most of their gazes focused on Nejire, who was floating, and with steaming hands. You won't do anything to them. She exclaimed with a fierce look in her eyes. That was close, the haze said, recompassing itself like nothing had happened. Oh yes, the big three, we read about you as well. That only means that I can't keep messing around. He said, as his fog grew even faster, swallowing all the students and teleporting them somewhere else. Egan. As Izuku was released of the dark fog, he found himself falling, turning around, he understood what had happened to him. I'm in the flood zone. he thought while falling in the artificial lake. Think Izuku, that mist guy teleported me with his quirk, bet these villains are here to kill All Might. How the hell are they going to do that? He wondered while sinking deeper in the lake. There you are, told a mysterious voice coming from beside the introvert. Turning around, Izuku spotted a shark-like mien, staring at him with threatening eyes, making the green-haired scream in terror, although only bubbles came out of his mouth. It's nothing personal, kid, but say goodbye. The villain exclaimed while charging with his jaw open. But before he could bite the wielder of One for All, Sayu kicked him in the face while carrying what seemed to be Denki in one of her arms. Acting quickly, the frog girl wrapped her tongue around the introvert and swam towards the surface, throwing both teens in a nearby boat. Once out of the water, both boys started coughing, trying to remove the excess of liquid in their system. After recomposing themselves, they started. Thanks, Sayu. I thought I was fish food. Denki thanked while spitting the last bit of water in his mouth. No problem, but right now we have something else to worry about, she said, looking around the boat. As the teens followed her lead, they noticed that they were completely surrounded by villains with water-related quirks. Some had flippers, while others had shark-like jaws similar to the villain that tried to attack Izuku. This sent shivers through their spines. How would they react to this? What are we going to do now? We're completely outnumbered. Denki exclaimed, terrified with the number of villains around them. First we need to calm down and analyze the situation so we can fight back, Izuku said, comforting the electric teen. Fight back? How are we going to do that? We're in their territory, yelled Denki, still afraid of what would happen if they even got close to the water. That's right where I wanted to get, Izuku said, receiving confused looks from his classmates. Think with me, all the villains below us are suited for aquatic combat, which means that they were recruited bases on USJ's environments, but even with all this planning, they teleported Sayu here. He finished, as his friends' looks of confusion switched to amazed ones. So that means that they have no idea what our quirks can do. That's awesome. Now we have something that we can exploit. Denki exclaimed quickly, changing from his scared state to a motivated one. Back in the USJ main gates, almost all students have been scattered throughout the facility, only leaving Ichako, Tenya, Hanta, Mina, Rakuto, Mizo, and 13 at the gates, along with a mist villain. Mizo, can you confirm everyone's locations? Tenya questions, while the multi-armed teen creates eyes and ears to track his friends. They've been spread around, but they're still in the facility. This is great, but right now we have something else to focus on. 13 exclaimed while turning around to face the students. Class president, your job is to run back to the school and report what's happening. What? No, as class president I cannot leave my fellow classmates by themselves. Tenya yelled, not willing to let his friends behind. Listen to me, 13 started. The alarms haven't sounded and our phones aren't working, which means that someone is affecting it with its quirk, and since Eraserhead is nullifying quirks down there and the alarms aren't back up, the villains that is keeping them down is hiding somewhere, and since the outside alarms haven't been activated, the villains are only in the inside of the establishment. So sending you out is our best option. The hero explained while he and the students entered their battle stances. Please use your quirk to save us, the hero begged, sending goosebumps through the blue-haired teen. We'll provide all the backup you need. Just go and call the teachers. Mina yelled, making drops of acid fall from her hands. Aside from the fact that you have no hope, you're still dumb enough to strategize in front of your enemy. The mist villain roared while charging at the teenagers. It does not matter if you hurt us or not, you can't stop us. 13 shouted while creating a black hole in front of the villain. Meanwhile, in the main plaza, the members of the Big Three appeared inside the massive villains, while the Erasure hero fought them. Taking a brief moment to understand their situation, the third-year students entered their battle stances, prepared to help the teacher on holding back the smaller evildoers, but, as they defeated various ordinary criminals, the man covered in hands watched from afar with an annoyed look in his face. But the pro and UA top students fighting, they stood no chance, he concluded while a black beast appeared beside him. Let's show them what you got, Nomu. Okay, tell me what your quirks can do so I can formulate a plan. Mine allows me to increase my strength and speed, but if I overdo it, I can hurt myself. Izuku started, receiving nods from his partners. I can do whatever a frog can, my tongue can stretch to a maximum of 20 meters, I can jump really high, stick on walls, and swim. That's pretty much it, Sayu said, while stretching her tongue a little bit. And mine allows me to release electrical blasts from my body, but if I go over my wattage limit my brain activities are drastically reduced. Denki explained, while releasing a small spark from his index finger. Our problems are solved, Izuku and Sayu thought while nodding at each other. Quickly turning towards the electric teen, both green heroes got serious as they slowly moved closer to the blonde, who took a step back in fear. Guys, what's with this look on your face?" Denki asked, completely terrified. "I'm sorry Denki, but this is for the better," Izuku said with an ominous tone, letting the power of one for all flow through his body to quickly grab the electric teen and throw him into the water. "I hate you," the blonde yelled while falling in the water. Now submerged, the electric teen looked around and saw the group of aquatic villains charging towards him, prepared to attack. "Your chum," one of them yelled while preparing to throw a harpoon. "You might want to get on top of the boat, Sai," Izuku said while extending a hand to pull the frog girl to the top of the boat's cabinet. With a terrified shriek, Denki released the biggest energy blast he had ever done, electrocuting all villains around the boat and knocking them out. As the evildoers slowly floated unconsciously to the surface, a completely mind-numb Denki emerged, flashing a thumbs up towards the green heroes. "Where?" he said, completely out of his mind. Understanding that it was safe to dive, the green heroes jumped and swam towards the coast of the main plaza, while Tsuyu dragged Denki by the collar of his jacket. Back in the gates, 13 continued to suck the black mist with one of his finger's black holes, but the villain wouldn't just accept it. By creating another portal behind the space hero, the black mist villain managed to redirect the attack to hit its caster, destroying the hero's suit. "How does it feel to be ripped apart by your own power, hero?" the villain mocked while 13 fell to his knees. All students froze as the hero hit the floor half dead, but they could not stop, they still had a mission to complete. "Go now, Tenya," Rikino ordered while rushing towards the defeated hero. It hurt him to leave everyone behind, but he had to do it. Starting his engines, Tenya ran past the villains as fast as he could, aiming to reach the emergency exit. "I'm not letting you escape," the haze yelled, creating a portal in front of the glass teen, but was interrupted as Mizo tried to crush him between his arms, but failed as the haze simply warped away. "Oh. You can do it," the multi-armed teen yelled while trying to grab the villain once again. "I said you're not escaping," the villain roared once again as he created another portal in the running teen's way, but this time, the portal disappeared by itself. Looking back, Tenya saw Chako with her hands inside the cloud of mist that slowly began to float towards the ceiling. "Damn, she got my body," the villain grunted while flying up in the sky. "I don't know why, but if you're wearing this metal plate that means you have a physical body in there," she concludes while jumping away from the dark fog. "Thank you everyone. Your efforts won't be in vain," Tenya shouted as he forced the emergency exit's door open and passed through it. "Oh, looks like I failed," the villain muttered before warping away from the heroes in training reach. After the mist disappeared, Achako clapped her hand together, releasing her quirk. "Please be quick, Tenya. I'm surprised we weren't affected by the electricity," she exclaimed, wondering how that happened. "Normally boats have insulating coating to prevent it from being damaged by lightning, but I still asked you to go to the top of it just to make sure," Izuku explained, clearing the girl's doubts. "Where?" Denki yelled, instinctively following his classmates and continuing to flash his thumbs up to the nothingness. "But what should we do now?" Tsuyu asked, putting her index finger on her chin. "Right now our top priority is to call reinforcements. We're outnumbered and we won't be able to fight them forever," Izuku strategized. "If they came here to kill All Might, that means that they found a way to do so, and since we don't know what it is, we should not take them easily. We should move by the shoreline and avoid the area where Teacher Asawa is fighting, this way we'll be able to regroup without drawing too much," Izuku Tsuyu said slowly, interrupting the green-haired muttering. "Look over there," she continued, pointing to the main plaza. Following the girl's finger, Izuku looked towards the plaza and froze in the same moment that he saw what was happening. The black human-looking beast stepped over a bleeding and unconscious Asawa, who had his goggles ripped apart and his left arm broken. Mirio stood in the distance, his costume was torn in multiple places, his forehead was bleeding, and he held an unconscious Tamaki in one of his shoulders, while the villain covered in hands, observed from behind the beast. Asawa and the big three were defeated by that monster, Izuku thought while shaking uncontrollably with Tsuyu doing the same. Denki yelled, but was silenced by one of the frog girl's hands. "I'd like to introduce my friend to you," the villain covered in hand said, taking a step forward. "Nomu, the bioengineered anti-symbol of peace. Bioengineered, so he is how they plan to kill All Might," Izuku concluded, getting even more pale than before. "What do we do? What can we do to get out of?" "Oh boom." A loud sound came from high in the sky, interrupting the green-haired thoughts. As the teenagers looked up, they spotted two blue shockwaves, one flying towards the black beast and the other to the villain with hands all over his limbs. The monster just tanked it, like nothing had ever hit him, and the smaller villain jumped backwards, dodging the attack. Looking a bit closer, they found a flying Nejire with steaming hands, looking extremely tired. "Long-range quirks, one of the things I hate the most," the villain exclaimed with an annoyed tone. "Nomu, take care of her." In the same moment, the beast looked towards the blue net and, in the blink of an eye, appeared in front of her, prepared to strike. He is incredibly fast, concluded Izuku. Nejire did not have much time to react, all she was able to do was to cross her arms in front of her body, using her gauntlets as a shield, but, as the monster's attack connected, she discovered just how outmatched she was. The gauntlets broke like they were twigs, and the beast's fist hit her arms, sending her straight to the floor in incredible speed, lifting a giant cloud of dust once she hit the ground. Nejire! Mirio yelled, afraid that his friend had been killed. As the Nomu fell back on the floor, so did the cloud of dust, revealing a damaged Bluenet laying on the shattered ground, almost unconscious. That attack had really hurt, you could see blood running down her forehead, her arms were seriously damaged, and her costume had been slightly torn. But the monster wasn't done. Slowly walking in the girl's direction, the beast stopped in front of her and pulled his arm backwards, preparing to give the final blow. She tried to move out of the way, but her wounds would not let her leave that spot. Looks like the Big Three is about to become the Big Two. The villain covered in hands mocked while laughing maniacally. This is bad. Sayu cried, trying to find a way to help her. Is there something we can do, she asked, while turning to face the boy beside her. But once she turned, the boy was missing. The only thing that could be seen was Denki wheeling in the background. Now die, the heroine, the villain said with hatred in his voice. In a quick swing, the Namu attacked, lifting another giant cloud of dust and releasing a powerful shockwave that flew across the plaza. Nejire! Mirio cried, trying his best not to fall on his knees. This is what happens when a bunch of kids try to play heroes, the villain mocked, trying to destroy the remains of determination Miro had left. As the dust slowly fell down, everyone's jaw dropped once the scene was revealed. There was no sign of the heroine, no blood, no remains. The only thing that could be seen was Nomu with his arm stuck on the floor, trying to remove it and free himself. Are you okay, Nejire? A soft voice asked in the distance. Looking towards the origin of the sound, Mirio's jaw dropped even harder. Izuku stood there, holding Nejire close to him in his arms, wearing a determined look on his face, but somehow, he felt different. Slowly opening her eyes, Nejire was surprised to see that she was still alive. How did I? She thought, trying to understand what had happened, but, as she looked around, trying to find the reason, she noticed she was being carried by someone. Fully opening her eyes, the Bluenet was caught off guard. The boy she so badly wanted to talk with, Izuku Midoriya, was holding her in his arms while looking at her with a comforting smile, but he looked different than the battle video she had seen before. The sparks his body emanated were thicker than normal, his curly dark green hair was now slightly lighter and spikier, and his eyes were also emanating sparks. He felt stronger. There is no need to worry anymore, I'll save you. Izuku affirmed while turning around to look at the villains. I cannot stay like this for much longer, I have to make this count. He thought, feeling his bones cracking and his muscle fibers being ripped apart. 50%, full cowl. Prepare yourselves, villains, you won't go any further. Were the words that roamed inside the introvert's mind. Their situation was dire, they're facing a beast created to kill the symbol of peace himself, they had multiple injured victims, and reinforcements were nowhere to be seen. This was his only choice. Just running to save Nejire was enough to crack my bones, and keeping the percentage so high slowly destroys my body, but I have to do it, I have to save everyone. Izuku motivated himself, keeping his gaze locked on the villains in front of him. Judging by my current state, I only have about 1 minute and 30 seconds before I lose the ability to move. I'll have to make these moments feel like an entire hour. As the green-haired strategized, Nejire just stared at her savior in awe while the boy held her in his arms. Why does he make me feel so safe? The Bluenet wondered while instinctively pulling herself closer to the boy's embrace. As Izuku stood strong in the villain's path, a portal appeared beside the villain covered in hands, revealing the Mr. Vildor that apparently brought bad news. I have returned, Tamura Shigaraki. He announced, revealing the villain's true name. Kurogiri, have you killed 13? He's incapacitated, but that's not the problem. There were some kids that I couldn't wrap away, and one of them escaped the mist. I swear, if you weren't our ticket out of here, I would have already turned you to dust. Tamura muttered with anger filling his voice. So we have reinforcements coming. That's great. Izuku celebrated while keeping his strong composure. We don't stand a chance against a bunch of pros. It's game over. The villain with hands growled, realizing that his efforts had been for naught. We better leave before they arrive, but until then, he paused. Let's leave a few dead kids to hurt the symbol of peace's pride, starting with that one. Tamura exclaimed, pointing his finger towards the girl in Izuku's arms. You won't lay a single finger on her. The introvert roared, tightening his grip on the girl's body. Of course. I'm not the one that's going to do the dirty work. That's why Nomu is here. He declared as the beast took a step forward. You have your orders. Kill that girl. With the command given, the black beast charged at the green hero, prepared to strike anything in his way. "Hold on tight," Izuku shouted as the sparks from his body became more erratic. In a quick swing, the Nomu attacked, lifting a cloud of dust where Izuku was and releasing a powerful blast of wind, but, in the blink of an eye, the green hero was behind the monster, untouched, as the dust quickly fell down, revealing that the monster's arm was stuck on the floor. "Don't mind the pain, just keep moving," the green hero yelled in his mind as he and the girl disappeared. In multiple blurs, Izuku moved through the plaza and, one by one, picked Sayu, Denki, Tamaki, and Asawa and brought them to where Mirio was, placing them safely on the floor. Everyone just watched in awe, even Denki, who was slowly recovering his neural functions, was surprised. "Mirio, can you move?" the introvert asked while watching the beast behind him. "My arm is a bit damaged, but it is nothing I can't handle," he explained, shaking his damaged arm to demonstrate that it was still moving. "But I need you, Sayu, and Denki to take everyone away from here," Izuku ordered, placing Nejire in the peerless hero's arms. "What? We can't leave you alone with that thing," Sayu exclaimed, but the introvert silenced her, placing their unconscious teacher on her shoulder. "I'm the only one that can keep up with that thing's speed. I'll keep the villains occupied so you all can leave safely," he exclaimed, placing Tamaki on the electric teen's shoulder. "But you can't affect them alone," Denki tried to say while he held Tamaki. The green hair did not respond. Victory had never been in Izuku's plan, he knew he couldn't win. That thing was just as fast and strong as he was, and his clock was ticking. Even if somehow he managed to defeat Nomu, he would still have to fight the other two, and with most of his body falling apart, it would for sure be impossible. Mirio was in a tough spot as well. From one side, he wanted to help the green hero and face the villains together, even though he knew he wouldn't be of much help. The beast they were facing was way too fast, faster than his reaction time. That's how he got his wound in the first place. But on the other side, they needed to rescue the injured in their arms. It was one of the most difficult decisions he was ever forced to make, but at the sound of ground being broken, all heroes in training became alert. Quickly turning around, Izuku caught the beast's hands, stopping it from attacking anyone behind him, while the wind roared around the two. "Oh. I'll hold them back," the green-haired shouted while trying to push the black monster back. Without another option, Mirio started moving towards the gates as fast as he could while trying not to hurt the girl in his arms. Understanding the situation, both first years followed the peerless hero, leaving the introvert behind. Once they were far enough, Izuku slid between Mom's legs and grabbed one of them, making him lose his balance and fall with his belly on the floor, and with a powerful spin, threw the beast away from the teenagers and directed them to the pair of villains. The black mist simply warped away, while Tamura jumped to the side. Readjusting himself mid-flight, the Nomu sank his hands on the floor, slowly stopping and beginning another assault, and he wasn't alone. While the heroes moved through the plaza, the warping villain appeared in front of them, prepared to send them to their doom, but to his surprise, Izuku was already expecting it. Looking to his left, the villain spotted the one-for-all wielder with his fist already pulled back and prepared to strike. "I said you won't lay a finger on them," he roared, releasing his attack at the fog villain. With his arm swing, a powerful blast of wind was sent at the evildoer, blowing most the haze that covered him away and revealing his real body that was composed of a white social shirt with a grey waistcoat and tie over it, black pants and shoes, along with 5 metal plates that covered his neck. This image had caught the introvert off guard. "So he has a physical body," Izuku concluded. Not wasting time, Izuku turned around and locked his gaze on the Nomu that was rapidly getting closer, but at 50%, there were limitations. Creating propulsion force out of pure strength, Izuku shot himself towards the monster while moving faster than a bullet, grabbed the Nomu's arm, and, with another spin, threw him away again, but this time he aimed higher to make sure the beast would not use the ground like he did last time. An interested Tamura muttered from afar. The villain covered in hands hadn't moved at all, he just stood there analyzing the teen's performance against the artificial living being and the mist villain, and to his surprise the green-haired was winning. "I'm losing my patience, Nomu, finish this already," Tamura ordered, and without a second of hesitation, the beast obeyed. Copying Izuku's movements, Nomu shot himself at the running teens, acting as a living missile. In reaction, the green-haired slammed the ground below him, creating a massive stone pillar that stopped the beast's assault. 1 minute remaining. Izuku counted while trying to ignore the pain that his recent move had caused. Not giving him time to think, Kurogiri teleported next at Sayu, trying to warp her and Asawa away from the group of heroes, but at the same time his dog started moving towards the girl, something pulled him back. Turning around, he spotted Izuku holding him by one of his metal plates and smashing him against the floor with immense strength. "Keep moving," Izuku ordered while pulling his fist back, prepared to knock out the villain below him, but was stopped as a black strong hand grabbed him by the arm. In reaction, the introvert swung his other arm and attacked Nomu directly in the head, while Kurogiri warped away. As his fist connected, Izuku was surprised to see that it had done nothing to the enemy, who prepared to attack with his free hand. Moving quickly, the green-haired hopped, dodging the attack and giving him enough room to plant his feet on the monster's chest and kick it with full force. The strike pushed him back, allowing the green-haired to release his arm, but it didn't cause any damage. "How can this guy thank me at 50%? Izuku asked, not noticing that he was yelling instead of thinking about his question. "Nomu has shock absorption, your attack will do nothing against him," Tamura explained with a malicious grin on his face. "Shock absorption? Then he is this fast and strong naturally," Izuku wondered, frightened with the sudden revelation. "No matter, I still have 30 seconds. While Izuku held the villains back, Mirio, Sayu and Denki crossed the plaza, dragging the injured heroes along with them, but as Denki slowly recovered from having his brain fried, he asked, "Why are we leaving Izuku behind?" He asked, although his ability to talk hasn't fully recovered. "It is our only option. He's the only one capable of standing up to Nomu," Mirio explained while continuously running forward. "But you're one of the big three, right? Can you not help him?" With the question in the air, Mirio simply became silent. He felt so useless right now, a freshman was willing to give his own life for the sake of others, while all he could do was run away. He knew he wasn't as fast as the green-haired or the black beast, but he could still try. Aren't heroes supposed to jump into the fray and save the day? But sadly for him this was out of his reach. "I know what that kid can do, I saw him throwing that softball. If he has that kind of power, he is the only one here capable of dealing with that monster." Mirio said, "I'm not fast enough to react to that thing, and that shock absorption makes my attacks useless. The only thing that I can do now is make sure that everyone makes it out alive. It hurts me, but that's all I can do right now." Deku and Nejire muttered tiredly. "Wait, I can see someone. Right there over the gates," Sayu said, pointing to her classmate standing near the staircase. "Then let's speed up, Izuku won't be able to hold them back forever," Mirio ordered while increasing his running speed with the first years doing the same. Breaking the silence between the green hero and the evildoers, Kurogiri warped back to Tamura's side, with most of his mist coating still being restored. "I'm sorry Tamura, I was not able to go through with him," Kurogiri apologized, standing tall beside the villain with extra hands. "Once again you disappoint me, if I didn't need your quirk you would be dead where you stand," Tamura threatened, sending an ominous look toward his ally while scratching his chin. "But this time I'll forgive you, that kid is, indeed, powerful." He explained his own twisted way of showing remorse. Izuku had already pissed him off. Not only was he standing in his way, but he also seemed to think that no matter what Tamura threw at him, he would be able to deal with it, and it was making the villain with extra hands really mad. It was time to finish this. "I'll give it to you kid, you did put up a good fight," Tamura started, flashing a malicious grin at the hero wannabe. "But I've already seen all you can do, and since I'm running out of time I think we should put an end to this. Nomu, no more handicaps, kill him." In no longer than an instant, Nomu appeared in front of Izuku with both of his arms pulled back and with an extremely intense killer intent. The moment Izuku noticed the monster's movement he knew no more holdbacks. Pumping 100% through his arms, Izuku stopped the beast strike, releasing a ridiculously powerful blast of wind, shaking the whole main plaza and starting a life-or-death strength contest. Just like his last use of 100%, his arms broke the same moment the impact was released, but this time he could not retreat. If he flinched, even if just for a second, his death would be sure. The monster wasn't holding back anymore, and it was obvious, even with the green-haired at full power, the Nomu could still push him back with no apparent difficulties. Izuku needed to do something, and he needed to do it quickly. "Eyes, we're here," Denki shouted now with his brain back to normal. As the electric team called, all the students at the top of the staircase turned around and, seeing the state their friends were in, rushed towards them in order to help. "Oh my god, what happened?" Mina asked, terrified with how beaten up her teacher was. "The villains have a type of super soldier, that's how they plan to kill All Might," Sayu explained while placing a sawa on Rikito's shoulder. "We were able to escape, but that thing is way too powerful for us to defeat, we need reinforcements. Tenyu is on his way to the school and calls the teachers. We just have to stall until he arrives," affirmed Hanta while helping Denki carry Tamaki. As the now reunited group of teenagers climbed the stairs and placed the wounded beside the space hero, they felt the ground shake and a massive gust fly by, shaking their bodies and forcing everyone to protect their faces from the wind. "What is this?" asked Mina, trying her best to stay on her feet. "Look over there," exclaimed Hanta as he pointed at the main plaza. Once everyone looked at the source of such powerful gale, they saw the black beast clashing with the powered-up green hero, who was slowly losing his grip and being forced to his back. The wind roared, and the floor around them seemed to shatter just from the sheer strength they were showing. "Oh no, Deku is going to die," yelled Ochako. "We need to help him." "But how? We can't even get close to them," exclaimed Rakido. "There's gotta be something," Denki shouted, trying to formulate a plan of approach. "We can't do anything right now, none of us has the strength to do anything, and with this wind pressure we would be blown off in an instant," explained Mirio while supporting himself on one of the gate's pillars. "But we can't let him die like this. There has to be something we can do," Ochako yelled once again while trying to hold the tears back. But the attention directed to the clash in the plaza, no one noticed that Nejire had slowly lifted herself from her place between the injured teachers and moved through the massive first years and appeared by Mirio's side, holding herself on his shoulder and catching him by surprise. "You can't be here, you need to. Izuku will win," Nejire said with difficulty, interrupting the peerless hero mid-sentence. Everyone just looked at the heroine with surprise in their eyes. She was badly injured, to the point where it was even hard for her to talk. Yet there she was, supporting the teenager that was willingly sacrificing himself for the sake of others. No one knew why, Nejire herself wasn't sure why she was rooting so badly for the introvert, but after seeing his actions, hearing his words, feeling his embrace, she felt like it was her obligation to be there for him and make him keep going. It was like something from the depths of her heart made her feel that way. "He will win. He promised to save us," the brunette continued, never removing her gaze from the green hero. Everyone paused, they didn't know how to react. Even if he promised to save them, how would he defeat something that could not take damage? With the wind being the only that could be listened, Ochako broke the silence between the students. "You can do it, Deku," she shouted, following the top students' actions. They were hesitant, but after a moment, everyone was following Ochako's lead. "Don't give up now," yelled Mirio. "We're counting on you," screamed Hanta. "Knock them, Dean," shouted Mina. "Go get them," screamed Denki. "You're our last hope," yelled Rakido. While Izuku fought for his and his friends' lives, Tamura slowly moved closer to the competitors with a malicious grin visible in his face. "Well, looks like they still believe in you, Mr. Hero," he mocked while the green-haired struggled against the black beast. "Too bad they don't know it is useless. Finish him." But the new orders, the Nomu increased the force in his arms, and with one last push, Izuku lost his grip. "I'm sorry," was all the teenager managed to say before being smashed on the ground and officially defeated. All teenagers just stared in terror. Izuku had been killed in front of their eyes, and they could do nothing about it. Tears fell from their eyes while Nejire fell on her knees. She just couldn't take it. That boy had saved her, he had risked his life to protect her, and ended paying the ultimate price. Even though Izuku was the one who had been killed, she was the one feeling defeated with water falling from her eyes. Nejire gathered all the strength she had left and did the only thing she could. "Izuku," she cried, letting her voice echo through the entire plaza. "Now that this brat is out of the way, let's finish what we started. Kill all of them," Tamura ordered as he pointed at the teenagers at the establishment's gates. Once again following the commands, Nomu glared at his targets with a killer intent that made all the students shiver, but, as the seconds passed, the monster was not moving. Tamura did not understand. "What are you waiting for? Kill them," the villain repeated, but, once again, the Nomu did not move, it remained and knelt down, with its arms dug on the concrete and continuing to glare at the teenagers. Everyone was confused, was the monster disobeying its master on purpose? No one knew why, but, as the villain continued to give orders to the unmoving beast, another tremor occurred. "I won't let you kill them," a strong voice said from below the Nomu. As both heroes and villains looked at the source of the sound, green sparks were being released from under the monster. Followed by a powerful gust that blew the villain covered in hands away, Izuku emerged from the crater, with their hands still connected, pushing the anti-symbol of peace back with no difficulties, and quickly standing on his feet once again, but he was looking different. His usual curly dark green hair was now vibrant and spikier, the sparks his body emanated were twice as thicker than before, his eyes also emanated sparks, and his costume was slowly being ripped apart. He looked unbeatable. "I will save everyone," Izuku shouted as he continued to push the black monster back without breaking a sweat. Even if it wasn't holding back anymore, the Nomu was no match for this new form that the green-haired was showing. Step after step Izuku pushed him back, causing various tremors, and releasing powerful gusts with each one that forced all spectators to protect themselves, even blowing Kurogiri covering haze away, but it did not matter. It was time to finish this. With one quick move, Izuku released the beast and grabbed both of its wrists with his left hand, crushing them. Pulling his right arm back, green sparks began to completely cover the teenager's limb, making it look like it was made out of pure energy, and with one mighty roar the green-haired attacked. Overcharged Detroit smash. With this extraordinary attack the beast was sent rocketing across the establishment with a powerful gale following it. It flew over the plaza and the flood zone, destroying the boat and lifting the water from the artificial disaster zone, hitting the dome wall and creating a massive dent on it. Everyone just stared in awe as the introvert's assault came into a close. Slowly the wind stopped and the water fell back to the flood, allowing the spectators to see the result of such a powerful strike. The monster was unconscious. His beak-like mouth was cracked, the top right part of his chest was completely obliterated, but was slowly regenerating, and his eyes were now just a pair of wide empty orbs on the monster's face. The Nomu had been defeated. The one, Ichako said slowly, still surprised with the sheer force that her classmate had just displayed. The one, yelled Mina, hopping out of pure happiness. Good one, Izuku, exclaimed Hanta while pumping his fist with Rakido. That's how heroes do it, shouted the sugar man. Nejire just stared in amazement. Izuku had just won an impossible battle, he outdid everyone's expectations, but something was off. Looking at the team from afar, the brunette noticed that he was not moving, he was in the same position as when he punched the monster, and like that he stayed, not moving a muscle, only breathing. But while the heroes cheered for their victory the villain became angry at his defeat. Impossible, roared Tamura while glaring at the green hero with rage in his eyes. Nomu was created to kill All Might, there's no way that he would lose to a brat like you. You cheated. With his last cry, Tamura began his charge with Kurogiri right behind him. He was going to kill that child even if it was the last thing he was going to do. But even with a pair of Avildors sprinting in his direction, Izuku did not respond. Why is he not moving? Asked Mina, not understanding the situation that the introvert was in. He told us that he hurts himself if overuses his quirk, explained Tsuyu, as her eyes widened in terror. He must have passed out. Oh no, they're going to kill him, yelled Denki. Hold Nejire, ordered Mirio while placing the brunette in Ichako's arms and beginning his sprint to save the green-haired. But before he could permeate through the floor a loud boom came from behind the teenagers. In an instant yellow blur passed through them and reached Izuku and grabbed him, moving the boy out of the villain's attacks. Worry not, because I am here, the figure announced, showing his identity and revealing to be All Might, now holding Izuku in his arms. And I am not alone. Moving through the mass of students, various pro-heroes along with Tenya stepped out of the gates and announced their arrival. Class President Tenya Iida reporting for duty. He shouted as the teachers began their operation. There are 3 students at the mountain, 2 at the landslide, downpour, and collapsed zones, and 1 at the conflagration. Informed Hound Dog as he sniffed the air and felt the student scent. Ectoplasm, create clones, and send them to help the students. Ordered Nedzu from Vlad King's shoulder. Roger, said Ectoplasm while doing as told. No, 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 no. Tamura cried as the pros began moving out and helped the students, making the villain's invasion crash down. It is a villain. This ends now, exclaimed All Might as he looked at the pair of villains in front of him. This is far from over. You may have won today, but next time I'll be the one to give the last laugh, I'll be the one to kill you. Tamura shouted while signaling to Kurogiri to warp them away. As the dark haze began enveloping the villain covered in hands, All Might quickly, but carefully, placed Izuku on the floor and rushed at the escaping Avildors, but, as he was about to grab the blue-haired villain, he and the dark fog disappeared, leaving him to grab the air that filled the area where the Avildors once stood. Damn it, All Might grunted as he failed to capture the responsible for the invasion. Looking back at his successor and once again holding him in his arms, the No.1 hero was taken back by the state he was in. His arms were completely shattered, his costume was torn, and there was blood all over the teenager's body, he was seriously damaged. Don't worry, young Izuku. This chaos is over. All Might comforted him while pulling his successor to a soft hug while trying not to hurt the green-haired even more. And with the pros' arrival and the villain's escape, the hell known as the USJ invasion had finally ended. After the pros arrived, all the smaller villains were taken down and the Nomu was captured, all students were rescued to receive due care and, happily, most of them were left unharmed. Aside from some bruises and cuts, most of them did not suffer any irrecoverable damage, but there were exceptions. Izawa and Tamaki had multiple broken limbs, but thankfully, nothing lethal, so they would only be out of commission for a while. Mirio had a big wound in his right arm, and Nejire had both of her ulnas cracked along with some bruises all over her body. But Izuku was the worst of them all. While most of the other students were healed instantly by Recovery Girl, Izuku's body was in much worse condition. Both of his arms were completely broken, and his forearms had multiple rips, most of his body bones were either cracked or shattered, and he used so much stamina he blacked out on his feet. If All Might wasn't there to take him to receive medical care immediately, our green hero wannabe wouldn't have survived to tell the tale. Right now, the introvert is lying unconscious in one of the beds of the nurse's office, along with Tamaki and Izawa, while the youthful heroine organized some documents in her desk. Most of the smaller wounds were already treated, but since he did not have the stamina to receive a kiss, his bones were still partially destroyed, and his arms were completely patched. But breaking the silence in the room, someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Recovery Girl announced while turning to see who wanted to enter her office. As the door slowly opened, Mirio, Nejire, Ichako, and Tenya came in, allowing them to see the state the patients were in. "We've come to see them," explained Mirio as he moved closer to his childhood friend. "How are they?" Ichako asked. "Tamaki and Izawa are doing well, I expect them to wake up by the afternoon. But the green hair over here is a totally different situation," Chio explained, only increasing the students' worries. "I have no idea when he might come back. But will he be okay once he wakes up?" Tenya asked, still unsure if his friend was fine or not. "He won't be able to move his arms normally for a week, but, aside from some scars, he'll look brand new once I'm finished," Chio affirmed, finally putting all teenagers in the room at ease, but, from the corner of her eye, the elderly saw Nejire slowly approach the unconscious teenager and softly grab his patched hand. "And what about you, little missy? I told you to go back home and rest," she exclaimed, being a little mad at the brunette. "I'm sorry," Nejire paused, trying to find the word to describe her motives. "He saved my life during the invasion and almost died because of it. I needed to see if he was alright." Silence filled the room for a moment. No one knew why, but since the USJ attack, Nejire had become attached to the green-haired, asking everyone if they knew about the introvert's condition, if those wounds were of normal occurrence, and so much more. Most thought that it was because he saved her, but Mirio, being the goofy man that he was, could only see one plausible excuse. "She totally has a crush on him," Mirio thought as he noticed how close his classmate was to the boy in question. "This is your typical comic book romance. Hero saves the girl falls for the hero and girl get together and live happily ever after, and the cartoon-like teenager couldn't have enough of it." Being part of the top students and one of the prettiest girls in the entire school, Nejire had a lot of admirers and boy crushing on her, but since she never even considered trying to find partner, the girl was single since before he met her, so seeing his friend wanting to be this close to Izuku was something that Mirio never wanted to see the end of. And while the first years could only stare at her with confusion, Mirio looked at the brunette with the goofiest smile he could ever muster. Rapidly moving closer to his classmate, Mirio grabbed Nejire's hand and dragged her toward the door, pulling her away from the unconscious introvert. Now I know you want to stay close to your knight in shiny armor, but we need to let the patients rest," Mirio mocked as he forced the brunette out of the room. "What's that supposed to mean?" Nejire yelled with blushing cheeks, embarrassed with the peerless teenager assumption. "No yelling in the nurse's office," Tenya corrected, although he didn't notice that he was also yelling. "Mirio is right, my patients need to rest, so, please, leave my office," Recovery Girl exclaimed as she began pushing the rest of the teenagers out of the room. "Wait, I still wanted," what Ichako tried to say as the elderly kept pushing them. "Whatever you want to say, it can be said later. Have a good evening," the Recovery Girl interrupted as she grabbed the door handle. And with a loud bang, the door was slammed shut, allowing silence to fill the room and the elderly to take a deep breath while massaging her temples before grabbing some document files and looking at the window. "You can come back in now, they're gone," Chio said as a muscular figure peeked on the window. "Are you sure they are not coming back?" All Might asked, still not sure if it was okay to reveal himself. "I locked the door. No one is getting inside unless I let them." "If that's the case, then no point," one hero said as he jumped back inside the room and turned back to his skeletal form. The truth is that, before the students arrived, All Might and Recovery Girl were talking about the whole situation of what happened at the USJ and Izuku's medical condition, but since the One for All wielder didn't want to raise any suspicions, he quickly activated his quirk and hid himself behind the window. "I know what they just went through, but teenagers these days worry way too much," Chio complained while moving closer to the skeletal man. "Let it slip this time, they're just worried about their friends," All Might defended, although the teenagers did worry too much. "Anyway, here are the files of that Nomu thing we captured," the elderly informed, handing the files to the No. 1 hero. While flipping through the pages of the document, All Might's eyes widened as he began to understand the gravity of the situation. "This is just insane. Are you sure these flies are correct?" he asked, not believing in what his eyes were showing him. "I checked it 3 times in Toshinori, everything that is written in those papers is absolutely true." Then that thing, indeed, had more than one quirk, he concluded while chills ran down his spine. "And that's not the end of it. Recovery Girl started. With this information and the students' confirmations, it is proven that that monster was created to defeat you. Just look at the quirk it has, they were specifically chosen to fight someone like you. Shock absorption and hyper-regeneration amazed me how young Izuku was able to defeat it. All Might exclaimed, looking at his unconscious successor. That's why I called you here. Come here. Chio ordered as she pointed at the computer over her desk. Once the pros were in front of the monitor, with a few clicks, the elderly showed the skeletal man even more information about the bioengineered weapon, which only made his worries increase. That thing was capable of resisting multiple of your max power punches, maybe even with you at prime strength. To believe that the green-haired over here defeated it with one punch means that he used way over 100% of one for all. She explained as images of Izuku's arms appeared on the screen. When I treated him, his bones were almost pulverized, but after seeing what Nomu can endure, his arms should have been ripped out of his body, but somehow, there he is, with his arms still connected to his body. I have no idea what happened for him to survive. If only I had arrived sooner, all this mess could have been avoided. All Might mourned, disappointed with himself. Izuku will recover, so you can calm down a bit. What you should be worried about is Nomu. It is impossible for that thing to be created naturally, so whatever is made is probably making more. This may be the beginning of the biggest villain threat in history. Recovery Girl warned as she pulled a copy of the file from one of the desk's drawers and handed them to the No.1 hero. Use these copies to begin investigating, they may be able to give you some hints. Thank you, it is appreciated. He said while bowing to the elder. But if you excuse me, I still have some errands to finish, so I'll be heading back to my office. The skeletal man explained as he changed forms and opened the door. If you say so, take care. Chio said, waving to the departing hero. Once out of the nurse's office and alone in the hallway, All Might grit his teeth and clenched his fist, needing the papers in the process. So you're still out there all for one. After leaving the youthful heroine's office, the teenagers headed to the dining hall where, in one of the many tables of the room, continued to discuss the events of the USJ. Do you think that they'll be fine? Achako asked, still not sure if her friends would be able to recover. You heard her, they'll be back soon, we just have to be patient. Tenya affirmed, consoling his classmate. But you saw how bad they were, is it really going to be okay? Achako asked once again, it was almost as if she didn't want to believe it. Recovery Girl is taking care of them, there's nothing to be worried about. Mirio added, also trying to help the fresh man calm down. But when I come to think of it, Izuku might not come back untouched. Tenya said, not measuring the consequences of his words. Dude. Now is not the time. Mirio exclaimed, trying to alert the boy with glasses of the girl's situation. But he's right, the brunette affirmed with her head lowered, catching everyone off guard. We all saw what he did. If he really hurts himself when overusing his quirk, then he may suffer something irreversible. Nejire Chako muttered, concerned with her friend's feelings. But we can't let that bring us down, we have to stay strong and hope for the better. She beamed, wearing a big smile to prove her point. Now that's the spirit. Mirio yelled while getting up from his chair and shaking his arms in his usual frantic way. How about we get some ice cream to keep our moods up? That seems like a good idea, Tenya answered, surprised with the third year's reaction. After a couple of hours, just like Recovery Girl predicted, Tamaki and Izawa woke up and were allowed to go back to their homes to continue resting in a more comfortable environment. The same can't be said about Izuku. Due to the state of his bones, Izuku wasn't allowed to move, therefore, he couldn't leave the school until he was completely healed. For 3 entire days the green-haired remained unconscious, receiving visits from his mother, his classmates and, surprisingly, Nejire. Every day she spent at least an hour in the nurse's office to see if her savior was recovering well. These visits led to 2 things. Mirio's suspicion of her crush to increase and an unexpected encounter. In the morning, like all others, Nejire walked towards Recovery Girl's office to check in the introvert, but as she grabbed the handle to open the door, she heard a sob coming from inside the room. Who may be in here? She wondered. Slowly opening the door, Nejire saw a short chubby woman sitting beside Izuku's bed crying and, just like the introvert, had green eyes and hair. Is she his mother? Nejire asked herself. She did look a lot like him, the only differences being that her hair was smooth instead of curly, and her eyes were a little bit lighter, but before the brunette could continue to wonder, the crying woman turned around as she noticed she wasn't alone in the room anymore. Who are you? She asked between sobs. I'm Nejire, the brunette answered, nervous with the situation she was now in. I'm Inko, Izuku's mother. The mother introduced herself while wiping the tears off her eyes. Sorry if I'm being rude, but what are you doing here? Oh boy. I came here to check on him, the girl answered while moving closer to the unconscious teen. But why? Are you his friend? Inko questioned, suspicious of why the brunette had come to visit. I can't say for sure, Nejire said, only increasing the mother's doubts. It was just that he saved me during the invasion, so I felt like it was my obligation to look out for him. There was a moment of silence between the two. On one side, there was Nejire, who was unsure if she'd even be there at the moment, and on the other was Inko, trying to comprehend why this beautiful girl was being so compassionate with her son. Until something clicked in the mother's mind. I'm sorry, but what was your name again? Inko asked, trying to put the pieces together. It's Nejire. The brunette answered hesitantly. Nejire Inko repeated over and over again, not noticing that she made the brunette feel uncomfortable. What is she doing? The girl wondered. Nejire Hato, right? The mother asked, catching the teen off guard. How do you know? She asked, afraid of what the woman knew about her. So it is you. Inko celebrated while standing up. I knew I had seen you somewhere else, it sure has been a while since we last met. Nejire took a step back at the chubby woman's reaction. How does she know me? She asked herself. She could hardly recognize this woman, and now she was implying that they had met each other. This couldn't get any weirder. I'm sorry, but I think you're mistaking me for another person. Nejire implied, still not sure of the woman's intentions. I'm not a sweetie. Don't you remember me? Inko wondered. I mean, you were just a child, and you barely talked to me, so it makes sense that you wouldn't remember me right off the bat. I don't want to be rude, but what are you talking about? Nejire asked one more time. I know who you are, Izuku introduced you to me when both of you were kids. She explained, making the brunette freeze in place. I've met Izuku before. She asked herself, becoming even more confused. Dear, I still have your parents' numbers. Inko affirmed while pulling her cell phone out of her skirt pocket and showing the contact to the teenager. I talk with them once in a while, but they never told me that you were back in town. After reading the numbers in the phone screen, Nejire confirmed that, indeed, those were her parents' numbers and everything the woman was saying was true. I remember seeing you two play together in the park, it kinda makes me feel sad that you had to go, Izuku really missed you. Inko told her while putting the device back in the pocket. He'll be so happy to know that you're back. But I don't remember anything that happened, what am I supposed to say to him? The brunette asked herself, not noticing that she had yelled her thoughts. I think I'd be nice if Inko attempted to speak, but a creak coming from behind stopped her. As the girls turned around, they were surprised that Izuku had begun to move once again, softly shaking his head as his consciousness returned. Once the introvert's eyes opened, his mind was completely filled with questions. Mom? Nejire? What happened? He asked with difficulty since his body remained weak. Izuku? The mother stuttered, falling to her knees and beginning to cry on the teen's shoulder, who grunted in pain. Stop, Mom. It hurts. The green-haired said, but it was for naught as his mother continued to let the tears roll. And while the family enjoyed their so-awaited reunion, Nejire just watched them in the corner with a soft smile in her face. They look really happy, she thought while slowly moving closer to the door. Whatever I want to say, I can say it later. Now outside the nurse's office and walking through the hallway, Nejire began to think about her conversation with Inko and stopped, looking at the horizon through one of the many open windows. If we really met each other, how can I not remember a single thing? The brunette muttered to herself while the wind blew through her hair. Well, I guess this is something I'll figure out later. And with another soft smile on her face, Nejire resumed her walk back home. After coming back to reality and being treated by a recovery girl, Izuku was allowed to go back home. He wasn't completely healed yet since he was advised to not put too much pressure on his arms, but the risk of a wound reopening was so small that there was no reason to keep him hospitalized. And finally, once the break the school provided was over, all classes were resumed. The day was normal for the most part for Class 1A. The usual classes, a moderate break, but no hero basics. They suspected that since they were forced to deal with a true villain invasion, a small rest from all the fighting and hero duties would be nice, so it went unnoticed. But what happened next was a different situation. As Izuku, Achako, and Tenya made their way to the train station like they always did, a familiar voice was heard calling them. Turning around, the first years saw Tamaki and Nejire approaching, being almost breathless due to the run they were forced to do in order to catch up. Please wait up, we want to talk with you. Tamaki said timidly since they were around most of the school's students. What is it? Izuku asked, surprised how tired the third years seemed to be. Well, we were wondering if you know what Nejire attempted to say, but her nervousness would not allow her to speak normally. What my friends are trying to say, another familiar voice said, catching everyone off guard. Looking down, the group of teenagers spotted Mirio, or his head at least, peeking through the floor and staring at the green-haired with his usual goofy smile. Would you like to go out with us, Izuku? Oh boy again. That sentence alone was enough to spill the first years' drinks, if they were drinking that is. Why me? The green-haired asked, completely surprised with the cartoony teenager's proposal. Well, if you hadn't appeared to save us we wouldn't be here in the first place, and, since you got really injured because of us, we thought that treating you around would be a nice way to thank you. Nejire managed to explain since Mirio had already done the hard part. I see, but where would we go then? Izuku asked, as the situation became clear. There will be a small festival happening in the center of the town tomorrow, would you like to come? The chicken asked. Izuku paused for a moment. He really didn't have anything special to do other than training, and their intentions were noble. He couldn't let them hang. Alright then, it is settled. The green-haired confirmed, as a small smile crept into his face. It's a date. Mirio yelled, catching not only the attention of the group, but of every student around them, making everyone blush with embarrassment. Please, calm down. Tamaki demanded, while trying to hide himself behind Nejire's blue hair. My bad. The peerless teen apologized while slowly sinking in the floor. Meet us at the center around 2 o'clock, but if you excuse me, I need to put my clothes back. And with that, Mirio disappeared. Is he always like this? Ichako asked, still blushing out of the embarrassment the cartoon teenager made them go through. You get used to it after a while, Tamaki shrugged as he began turning around and walking back to the school. We'll be waiting. Nejire said happily, following her friend's lead. And with all of that said and done, only one thing was certain. Tomorrow will be crazy. All classes had already ended and the students had been released. It was almost 2 o'clock, the time Izuku was told to meet the big three at the city center. He couldn't be more nervous. As he finished dressing himself, the green-haired stood in front of his mirror to see how he looked, and it wasn't so bad. Izuku was wearing a black t-shirt with a green jacket on top, black jeans, and his usual red boots. It was good enough. With his wallet and keys in hand, Izuku headed to the door to meet with the third years, but his mother, who was watching TV in the living room, became curious. Where are you going all dressed up? Inko asked innocently. I forgot to tell her. He remembered. I'm just going to meet up with some friends, that's all. Izuku explained, although he did not mention who these friends were. Friends? My baby has friends. She cried. Izuku had been alone for so long that just hearing those words were enough to make her tear up, and being the affectionate mother that she was, Inko got closer to her son and pulled him into a tight hug. You've grown so much. She said between sobs. Although her tears were staining his shirt, Izuku understood how his mother was feeling and decided to give this moment to her, returning the hug and kindly massaging her back. They stayed like that for a couple of seconds until Inko, now calm, pulled away and opened the door for her son. You better get going. You don't want to let them wait, do you? With a soft smile on his face, Izuku kissed his mother's forehead and walked through the door, leaving the chubby woman on her own. I wonder if he is going to meet her. After a short train ride, Izuku arrived at the center and began looking around, trying to find the group of third years that he was supposed to meet with, and while searching he noticed that, indeed, there would be a festival happening today. All the streets were decorated with several stalls that sold different types of products, bands of all colors connecting one pole to another, soft music being played in the background, and hundreds of people enjoying everything that was offered to them. It was really nice to see everyone enjoying themselves. It took a while, but after some time walking around, Izuku found the big three. They were standing next to the fountain at the center of the festival and seemed to be chatting, and while observing them, the introvert noticed that they had dressed up as much as he had. As he approached the group, the cartoon teenager noticed his presence and waved at him, drawing the attention of the other members of the group. Hello there Izuku, how's it going? Mirio greeted as the green-haired got closer. He was wearing a dark red button-up shirt, gray jeans, and a pair of brown boots. Took you long enough. Mocked Tamaki. He was wearing a loose-fitting white shirt with a black jacket over it, dark blue jeans, and black shoes. We've been waiting for almost 15 minutes. Don't be so rude. We are here to thank him, not to make him feel bad. Nejire corrected while giving a small slap on Tamaki's head. But if you don't mind me asking, how do I look? I bought this dress recently, but I'm still not sure if it was a good idea, she asked while leaning closer to the one-for-all wielder. As Izuku observed the girl in front of him, the only thing he was able to do was blush uncontrollably. The brunette was wearing a short-sleeved blue dress with a long white stripe around the skirt, dark blue high heels, and a silver collar with a heart pendant. She looked so cute. The green-haired though while trying to hide the redness on his cheeks. You look nice. He stuttered, looking everywhere except in her sky-blue eyes. Do you really think so? She asked again, receiving a nod from the green-haired one which made a huge smile appear on her face. While the two discussed whether or not the girl looked pretty, Mirio watched them with a giant shit-eating, trying his best not to laugh at Izuku's reaction. They look so cute together it almost gives me cavities. The cartoon teenager though. Today is my chance, I'll make these two get together no matter what. He exclaimed in his mind before moving closer to the blue net and placing his hand on Nejire's shoulder, getting her attention. I know you're still unsure if your new dress looks good or not, but let's not make Izuku become a new type of tomato. Mirio joked while dragging the girl away from the fresh man. But what are we going to do today? Izuku asked, curious about what the big three had planned for him. We're in a festival, we can go to whatever event they're hosting. Tamaki explained. They have all types of food in those stalls, some small attractions, it is up to you on what we're going to do first. And, of course, we'll pay for everything. Mirio added, shaking his arms frantically like always. What? I can't make you pay for everything, it's not right. Izuku said, finally understanding the trio's plan. No need to work up about it, everything around here is very cheap. This pendant I'm wearing, for example, I bought it a couple of minutes ago and was about 250 yen, and even if they weren't, we all agreed to share the bills beforehand. Nejire explained, surprising the green-haired. Is it really that cheap? Everything around here is. Mirio boomed, scaring the couple. Now let's stop wasting time and begin having fun. He shouted while pulling his friends inside the crowd. But what are we going to do? Izuku stuttered, startled with the cartoon teenager attitude. Again, it is up to you where we're going first, so please, make the honors. The blonde said, still pulling everyone around. Then how about we go there first? I think it would be a nice start. Izuku suggested while pointing to an area full of carnival games. Following Izuku's indication, the cartoon turned around and dragged everyone to the mentioned area, while everyone around them just stared at the group. Seeing a youngster like Mirio just casually dragging 3 other teenagers around and making a lot of noise in the process isn't something that you're used to seeing every day, so being the center of attention was one of the many things Mirio was making his friends go through, and they were not liking it. Tamaki and Izuku kept covering their faces with their free arms, trying to move all attention to someone else, while Nejire blushed and smiled nervously, but you must be thinking. Why didn't they simply let go and walk on their own? They tried, but Mirio would not let go, and his grip was too strong, their only option was to endure the embarrassment. He would pay for this later. Now in the middle of the playground, Mirio released their hands, giving them room to breathe and look at their surroundings. There were all kind of attractions and stalls around them, going from small duck pounds to freaking shooting galleries and whack-a-mole, but one of them got the introvert's attention. So, which one do you want to go first? The blonde asked innocently. That one. Izuku said while pointing at the small red tower with a golden bell at the top. A high striker. It has been a while since the last time any of them had seen one of these. The only thing Izuku could remember about this attraction, that when he was kid he tried lifting the mallet to play the game and was barely able to move it. He also remember his mother giggling a lot. You wanna know how strong you are? This one is sturdier than normal to prevent problems with quirks, so let's see if you're up for the challenge. The attraction owner said, trying to convince them to spend their money on his booth. Izuku really wanted to play, he wanted to know how much he had grown since his training with All Might. As he was about to pull out his wallet, Tamaki grabbed his wrist and handed his own money to the booth owner. We said that it is on our treat. The senior said, as he released the green-haired. Each of you got one attempt, good luck. The man informed me, as the machine was turned on. Moving closer to the attraction, Izuku grabbed the mallet and lifted it and, to his surprise, he did it with ease. He didn't know if the hair itself was light or he was strong enough to lift it so easily, but, with the mallet now in hand, the green-haired stared at the tower, thinking of what would happen when he hit the base. What are you waiting for? Go for it. Nejire motivated, curious of how well the freshman would go. After taking a deep breath, Izuku closed his eyes and hit the lever with all he had, creating a loud noise and sending the chaser high up. What happened next surprised everyone. Not only did the chaser hit the bell extremely quickly, proving that Izuku had more strength than the machine could measure, but the cable of the mallet broke upon impact, separating the head from the rest of the tool's body. The big three, the stall owner, and people around them just look in awe at the sheer strength that green-haired demonstrated. When did he become so strong? The big three thought in unison. Slowly opening his eyes, Izuku was surprised to see that the hammer he was holding was broken, and once he turned around, he grew even more confused as everyone stared at him. What happened? The one-for-all wielder asked with nervousness in his voice. You reached the maximum score, said Nejire. Broke the hammer with your hit, Tamaki continued. And won a prize. Finished the booth owner, yelling in Izuku's ear while he shoved a 13 plushie at the teenager. But what about your hammer? The green-haired asked. I was already planning on replacing it and I have another one anyway, so enjoy your new toy. The man said as he pulled another mallet from below the booth's counter and gave it to Tamaki. How about you be the next one? I wanna see how everyone else will go. With the chicken becoming the new center of attention, a furious blush covered his cheeks, his legs started to shake, and he wasn't able to a word leave his tongue. Understanding the situation his friend got himself in, Mirio quickly acted. Come on man, I know you can do it. He was motivated, shaking his arms frantically. Yeah, you can do it, said Izuku, catching the dark-haired off guard. With all this motivation, Tamaki copied Izuku. He closed his eyes and hit the lever, releasing a loud noise as well, but differently from the green-haired, the chaser only went a bit past the half of the meter. But before he even reacted to his result, Mirio was already by his side. That was amazing Tamaki, I knew you had it in ya. The cartoon teenager said while wildly shaking his friend and yanked the hammer from his hands and moved closer to the machine. My turn now. With a quick swing the mallet hit the lever, sending the chaser high, but it wasn't enough to make it hit the bell. In other terms, if this toy was a test, he would have scored a 9 out of 10. So close Mirio muttered hoping that, somehow, the chaser would go just a little bit higher. My turn. My turn. I want a 13 plushie too. Nejire beamed, excited with what her prize was. As Mirio gave her the hammer, she quickly struck the lever, but, to her displeasure, the chaser barely moved, stopping just below the first quarter of the meter. The only thing she heard after her attempt were soft giggles coming from behind her. Don't laugh at me like this. She pouted with an embarrassed blush on her cheeks. She only made it worse. But how funny it was to see the brunette embarrassed like that. Both seniors were no longer able to hold back their laughs and bursted into giggling messes, making the girl blush even harder. I just don't do physical training as much as you do. Nejire whispered softly, playing with a piece of her sky blue hair to try to calm herself down. But while Mirio and Tamaki were almost dying of laughter, Izuku could only look at her with pity. It was funny to watch. Yes, it was, but everything she said was true. Women normally have less muscle mass than men, and, because of her quirk, she probably never had a reason to do any intensive training like they had. Although he knew they were just messing around, and being the cinnamon roll that he is, Izuku had to act. You can have the plush if you want, he offered with an embarrassed blush on his cheeks. This caught everyone off guard, including the booth owner, and while Izuku's face became redder than a tomato due to the stars, Nejire tried to understand what was going on. Is he being kind to me because we've met before? She wondered while staring at the green-haired with shiny eyes, but she had to answer. I can't take it, you won it fair and square. She exclaimed, shaking her arms in front of her face, trying to hide the redness of her cheeks. Don't worry about it. You really wanted one so I don't mind giving it to you, and I wasn't going to do anything with it anyways. It is better if you have it. He explained, pushing the toy even closer to her. Silence filled the air for a moment. She really didn't want to take it from him like this, but he was offering with so much kindness that it would actually look bad if she declined. Taking a deep breath, the blueberry looked at Izuku in the eyes and grabbed the plushie, squeezing it tightly in her chest. Thank you very much, Izuku, she said with a soft voice. The green-haired was happy that she had accepted the gift, but at the same time. She's so cute. He yelled in his mind as his blush became even bigger than before. You're welcome. He stuttered, looking down to avoid staring at her beautiful sky blue eyes. I won't need to do anything, they're already falling for each other. Mirio thought as he watched the couple interact. They had to move on with their day. Wrapping his arms around the Izuku's and Nejire's necks, he pulled them closer to him, ending the moment they were sharing. I know you like each other, but let's not waste any more time, okay? He teased, making the pair blush at the same time. It's not like that. They yelled in unison while pulling away from the cartoon teenager. Could you guys stop yelling? It's drawing more attention towards us. Tamanho begged as he hid behind the high striker. You're right. Let's go somewhere else, said Mirio as he, once again, grabbed everyone's wrists and began dragging them around. But this time it was quick. He stopped in front of shooting gallery with fake rifles and multiple moving targets. Come on Izuku, I think you're going to like this one, Mirio exclaimed as he played the booth owner for one round. It's very simple, the owner started. I'm gonna start the timer and you have to shoot down as many targets as possible, take enough down, and you earn a prize. Good luck, he said while placing a fake rifle in the Green United's hands. And what do I get if I win? Suzuki asked. The owner smirked. If you win, you'll get a limited edition All Might figure, the man said as he pulled the action figure from behind the counter. But you only have one chance to get it. As Izuku looked at the mentioned prize, his eyes widened in surprise. This was, indeed, a limited edition figure, one that he had been searching for years. This became personal. Turn it on, Izuku shouted as he entered the stance and prepared himself to shoot. As the timer started and the targets began moving, Izuku attempted to shoot them, but sadly, he was as precise as he thought he was. Out of the 20 target he needed, he got 3. Oh boy, was he sad about it. Sorry kid, better luck next time. The owner mocked with a sly grin on his face. Izuku felt defeated, so much that he fell onto his knees and let his forehead touch the ground. He wanted the figure so badly, but, as his last attempt had shown, accuracy wasn't his forte. But while he mourned about his loss, Nejire looked at the plush and the boy who gave it to her. With determination in her eyes, the brunette pulled some money and slammed it at the counter. "Give me a round," she ordered, as the owner gave her the fake gun, once again, with a sly grin in his face. "Good luck little missy," he mocked. What happened next definitely shut him up for good. One by one, Nejire shot down the targets that appeared at the gallery, all of them hitting dead in the center. As the 20th target was shot down, a small burst of confetti was released from the booth as everyone's jaws simply dropped. Out of all targets that appeared in the gallery, Nejire hit 20 out of 20. She was amazing. Confidently placing the rifle at the counter, the brunette smirked and extended a hand towards the man. "My prize please," she said vocally as the man followed her request and placed the figure on her hand. Quickly crouching behind Izuku, Nejire tapped the boy's shoulder and, as he turned around, the first thing he saw was the action figure right up in his face. "Now we're even." Nejire beamed while placing the figure in the green-haired's hand. "But how?" Izuku asked, unsure of how she managed to obtain the prize. "My quirk might not require physical training, but I definitely need to know how to shoot," she explained as the dots in his mind connected. "Come on, there's still a lot of things that we can do," she said while pulling the All Might fanboy out of the ground. For a couple of hours they roamed around, playing the various games the festival was hosting, and even watching a magic show at one point, although Izuku could have sworn that he saw the magician use some type of teleportation quirk in one of his tricks, but what we should be paying attention was Mirio. For the entire afternoon he had been trying to find opening to make Izuku and Nejire get closer to one another, but not only did Tamaki get in his way multiple times, but almost no attractions could be used to make his plans easier to execute, and he was beginning to run out of time. Soon enough the sun would begin to set, meaning that they would have to go back to their respective homes, meaning that he would have lost one of his best opportunities to get them together. "I swear, if I don't make them leave this festival, as a couple I'll drop from hero studies," Mirio exclaimed in his mind, although, obviously, he would not do what he thought. But before he could think of anything to push the pair closer to one another, a weird noise interrupted his thoughts. As the trio turned around, they saw a grunting Tamaki, with his hands on his belly and a grumpy stomach. "I'm sorry, but I need food," he exclaimed as his friend simply sighed. "Then let's find some tasty treats for sun eaters over here," Mirio jokes as the group headed together to an area full of food stalls. After minutes of discussion, they settled with a classic portion of takoyaki for each of them, walking around the festival while eating their delicious snack. With Mirio walking along with Nejire and Izuku with Tamaki, a mean idea appeared in the chicken's mind. "Hey Izuku, wanna see something funny?" he asked with a small smile on his stuffed face. "Sure," the green-haired responded. In an instant, Tamaki's fingers became big octopus tentacles and quietly moved over the ground and tapped on Mirio's right shoulder, drawing his attention and making him turn around, interrupting his conversation with the brunette, who was equally confused. "Who's there?" the cartoon teen asked, but was interrupted as he felt another tap on his other shoulder. "What is Nejire?" he asked. What?" she returned, making the situation even more confusing. Meanwhile the pair tried to understand what was happening. Izuku and Tamaki giggled uncontrollably on the background, trying their best to stop the sounds from escaping their mouths, and, in one of the multiple spasms their laughter were causing, the dark-haired accidentally made one of his extended tentacle fingers hit one of Mirio's legs, making him trip and fall onto his portion of takoyaki, staining his shirt. Immediately regretting their decision, the pair of introverts rushed to aid the blonde, who was slowly getting on his knees. "I'm sorry, it was supposed to be just a joke." Tamaki apologized while helping his friend stand up. "It's fine Tamaki, I know it wasn't on purpose," Mirio responded, but then, something in his mind clicked. "Wait, this is perfect. I can use this to push Tamaki away, Izuku and Nejire can be alone, I'm such a genius." The cartoon teen strategizes as his Cupid mode activates. Acting before the dark-haired could react, Mirio grabbed him by the wrist, pulling him away from the pair and making everyone confused. "I know it was an accident, but you're going to help me clean my shirt," Mirio exclaimed while pulling his childhood friend towards the man's bathroom. "Wait, why me?" the chicken yelled before being locked in the bathroom with the peerless hero, finally leaving Izuku and Nejire all by themselves. Silence filled the air, as no one knew how to break the ice between them, but, after taking a deep breath, Nejire made her move. "So that was weird, wasn't it?" she asked even if the answer was obvious. "Yeah, really weird." Izuku stuttered, as the idea that he was alone with a girl crossed his mind. "Are you alright? You're a bit red," the brunette asked, wondering if her friend had a fever. "I'm fine, don't worry about me," Izuku said, shaking his arms frantically to hide his blush. Once again, silence filled the air. After a couple of seconds waiting for the two to pop out of the bathroom, it was Izuku's turn to try to break the ice. "Well, it looks like it is going to take a while, let's find a place to sit," he suggested and received a nod in return, so, without wasting any more time, they began looking for a bench. "So do you mind if I ask some questions?" Nejire asked bluntly. "About the USJ thing," she answered, creating tension between the two. "Oh," he hesitated. Izuku himself wasn't sure of what had happened at the invasion, but he also didn't know what she was going to ask. It could be something completely harmless. But still, he wanted to do it slowly. "Let's find a bench first, it will be easier," he suggested, still lost in deep thoughts. "A bench like this one?" Nejire jokes, as she brought Izuku back to reality, making him realize that she was already sitting in the mentioned bench. It was going to happen now. Once seated on the bench, the green-haired took a deep breath and looked at the brunette. "Alright, ask me anything." After taking a second to see what question she would ask first, Nejire turned to the introvert and spoke. "What exactly is your quirk?" "Well," Izuku hesitated. This was her first question, and he was already unsure of what to say. Obviously he wouldn't tell her about One for All, but he had to say something. "It's just another strength-enhancing quirk, the difference is that mine is a lot stronger than other ones," he explained, while activating 5% through his arm, small green sparks. "Are there any side effects?" the brunette asked, amazed with how pretty the sparks were. "If I use more power than my body can handle, my muscles and bones would be destroyed," he answered while turning off his quirk. "Like what happened in the USJ." "Why the hell did he say that?" "Yeah," she paused and looked to the floor. All the happiness that was between them disappeared and was replaced by tension with just those few words. Silence filled the air, and their difficulty to restart the conversation dominated. Those few moments where Izuku declined death itself and defeated that black beast held way too many feelings in the teenagers' hearts. Sorrow, despair, bitterness, but also happiness, hope and determination. This mess of feelings were keeping the pair from muttering any word. But using all she had, Nejire spoke. "What was that last attack anyway?" she asked, trying to stop the emotions from taking over. "I don't know, it just happened," Izuku answered, remembering the feeling of the energy overflow. "But what was driving you?" That question caught the introvert off guard. "What was driving me?" "Yeah, I mean, that attack was bigger than anything you've ever done, right?" she asked again and received a nod as a response. "And if you really hurt yourself when you overuse your quirk, what kept you moving forward through all that pain?" The green-haired paused. This was something that he had not asked himself yet. What made him keep going when all hope seemed to be lost? While searching for the answer, only one thing appeared in his mind. Her. While looking at the golden sky above his head, Izuku let his mouth move on his own. "It was a girl I met a long time ago. She changed my life, she gave me hope, she gave me reason to continue chasing my dreams." "Wow, she must be really sweet then," said the brunette, amazed by how kind this girl seemed to be. "How did you two meet?" "It wasn't the best, but I would never change it," he started. "She was exploring the woods next to my home when she fell into a ditch and sprained her ankle. She had been stuck there for a couple of minutes before I heard one of her cries and helped her get back to her family. We even made a promise we would both grow up and learn how to be heroes, so one day, we'd find one another and work together and be as great as our idols." He took a small pause as the memories of that day filled his heart with joy. "I can't remember how much of her appearance, the only thing I can remember is her beautiful blue hair, kinda like yours." He finished while turning around to look at the girl beside him. He just said to her something that he never told someone, and it felt good. He never spoke about it with anyone because it didn't feel necessary, but now that he opened up, his heart was feeling at ease. But, as his eyes met with hers, every feeling other than surprise completely vanished. Nejire was crying, her smile had disappeared, her beautiful eyes now wobbly, and her cheeks were red, but, surprisingly, she didn't have any expression. She just stared at the green-haired while the tears rolled down her cheeks. "Nejire, are you?" "I remember you," was all she said. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.